Felt like my first family vacation.
Yeah, you already know. Copper, copper, young millionaires, the general. Okay, I wake up every day, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling great. Every day I'm getting paid, man, this life is going great. I just wanna celebrate, I made it in and out of state. $1,000,000 in the case, I got it hidden somewhere safe. I multiply all my millions and really I am extremely wealthy. I distributed my millions with my family. This is just the beginning, I purchased a Lamborghini. Driving around the city, believe me, you haven't seen me. Made it through all the struggle, defeated all of my rivals. I was never entitled, I had to fight for survival. Man, this life is amazing, it's crazy that where we made it. Now I'm living my dreams and I'm barely just getting started. Through the struggle back when I was very worried. Now I'm chilling, get my condo, Lamborghinis and Bugatti. I know you in a hurry, but I promise don't be worried. When you see me in the club, I probably got enough to party. I'm a multi-millionaire, getting money everywhere. I ain't tripping on nobody, I just came to celebrate. Yeah, we got the party popping, got the general over here, throwing money in the air, cause we get it every day. I multiply all my millions, now me and my people winning. Moving city to city, I promise that you will see me driving a Lamborghini, but this is just the beginning. $1,000,000 Bugatti, I'm stacking money in the ceiling. Multiply all my millions, now me and my people winning. Moving city to city, I promise that you will see me driving a Lamborghini, but this is just the beginning. $1,000,000 Bugatti, I'm stacking money in the ceiling.
All What's up, guys? Here we are, the Truth Podcast here out of the grill in Albuquerque, New Mexico. What's up, guys? You guys turning it up?
Well, ready for the flying monkeys and houses to fly by here because we have really bad weather. We've already had like 4 or 5 power outages. So those of you that are on the air, we have about those of you guys that are listening. Make sure you be a little patient, but we'll always come back to the broadcast. And so we're doing the best we can here to hold it together.
How about you, Nikki G?
I'm doing amazing. Grounded, feeling blessed. It's a good birthday weekend. You had the general's birthday.
I came off hard here. I'm not going to say much, but I just can tell you it's hard.
Oh,
We're going to keep it regular here.
It's good, though. Life's about celebrating. And I told you this last week or whatever, is legends celebrate a lifetime. Every day is a blessing when you wake up. And, I know that you wake up full of gratitude. And so, you deserve it. How crazy it was, it don't matter. It was well deserved.
Yeah, it's all about that. So, yes, we got something special today. Nikki G is going to lay down kind of the subjects we kind of been brainstorming here. And I'm going to put that final touch. But, Nikki G, come on, run us through what's the first thing you want to know? What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, so one of the recent audiobooks I was listening to is called Unfuck Yourself, Get Out of Your Head and Get in Your Life. And one of the things I resonated with this book is, self-talk. There's 2 types of talks that we do. We talk amongst people like we're doing now. So that goes within what quality are we talking about? I noticed a lot lately. I can see people's life by what they talk about. Also, self-talk. What are we telling ourselves in? And I'm just like, me, I'm always curious about your mind and stuff. And it's like, what kind of self-talks that you have? We are talented, but I'm not good enough, or you don't know. Everybody has their different stories. But what's your take on those 2 type of talks? How do you level up in that sense?
Well, I think I'm going to just talk about the self-talk, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever had that problem, to be honest with you. Maybe as a little child, when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, but as an adult, I think I suffer from high esteem, right? I don't really have that. Like, my whole thing is about, my mom used to tell me you're a champ. And so for me, I've always taken that approach of like, I'm the champ. So I'm going to go 110%. And I continue that through everything that I do. And there's something kind of crazy because I was talking to one of my friends, and one of the bullshit things, I ended up getting shingles last week. And I thought I had blown my back out, right? And I'm in there, I go to this chiropractor, I think my back's blown, and this pain is tremendous. So I think one thing for myself is that I've mentally trained so hard not to even acknowledge the stress that I'm going in or that's going on in my life or the failures of this, because I'm always telling myself how good it is. I don't know if you remember in some of the earlier podcasts when we started off and we'd be talking with Coach, and Coach would be like, well, tell us about the hardships. And I'm like, well, I don't know if the hardships are there because I don't remember them, because what it was, it took me to today to realize that I've actually been wired not to recognize it. Does that make sense? So it's happened, but I'm not wired to recognize it. So it's kind of like, it happened. Oh, that's shit. Because let's think about it this way, right? If we're walking down the street and we get dog shit on our shoe and we carry it, do we want to keep that dog shit on our shoe or wash it? Right? When you get rid of that. That's the same thing I'm talking about. So I don't choose to recognize the dog shit, but I'm not going to walk on the white carpet. I'll leave the shoes there. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with self-talk. And I think people get one bad instance, and that's all they talk about or think about for the next fucking month, and they can't resonate anything possible. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. The one bad girlfriend, the one bad boyfriend. I can't believe I went to Long John Silver's and the cashier talked to me like shit, and all of a sudden that's carried now for the entire day. And I think for me, I just going through the instances. Okay, I today I'm ran into a fucking asshole. It's only for a few seconds, and I'm on to my next thing. I don't carry anything forward, right? Yeah. If it's positive, I'm like, oh, that's positive, that's badass. Okay, Mo. And then I still move forward. So that self-talk, I think you have to have that self-love and tell yourself, hey, what's great, but also what your shortfalls are. I think too many times nowadays, we say we're in end times. The reason we're in fucking end times is we're so scared to tell us what our shortfalls are or what anyone's shortfalls is or what's going on in the world because, we're afraid of offending ourselves, right?
Yeah.
and now I'm gonna offend somebody else. But the day it gets to you're afraid to offend your own self, it's fucked up at that point because there's no room to grow from there. So I think that we're getting to that point. What was your first point?
Is the talking amongst other people.
This is the other thing I love, right? I was excited about this, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to steal John here after this. So I'm creating this timeline, and it's this big, huge timeline that I've done on history, and I do a lot of the research. But my whole philosophy is always finding someone who knows the shit inside and out, so you can get a perspective, not from their perspective, but just from a real scientific perspective. And I'm creating this huge timeline on two things: the Bible, how the church started, and then American history. And I'm all putting it together, and you guys are going to be excited what I'm about to come with and what I'm trying to really come together with. And it was from a lot of talks with really smart people in my office or just friends. You guys here, is I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, is life really bad now, or is it more of a shithole back then? And when I mean back then, I'm saying 200 years ago.
Yeah.
And propelling forward. But the only way to really see that is to document those moments, getting those documents. It's already written out there, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I think what happens is, and this is where I think is kind of crazy. Back in the 1800s, you had the major influenzas or like these, and 1 million people would fucking die, right? There's no hospital beds, you just die. Today, barely any people die, and it's like, oh my God, the world's gonna die. We gotta prepare, and it's like we've gone so soft. And even the stuff we've seen, when all the topics we've talked about, but when you think about this, if we were on the original frontiersmen and women that came to the United States, what were they going through? Right?
Yeah.
And so what talks were they having amongst each other? What was the talk at the table? I guarantee no one's talking about how cool you look. It was the bare necessities. Like, what do we got? What do we got to hunt? What do we got to gather? What do we got to do to stay alive, protection, all that? And I think what's happened is that with those talks, Nikki, I think you got to surround yourself with people that are doing big things or have had some type of hardship, and you're not just talking about stupid current events that aren't going to get you anywhere.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
We're back and forth, and we're talking about, okay, the presidents, the Biden and Trump and this, and we can sit there and talk all fucking day in our group, and obviously we can go and vote, and our vote's going to be a drop in this massive bucket, but we actually can't change anything there. We can only change what's in front of our kitchen table, right? We've talked about this in the podcast over and over and over and over again. But what you want to do is this: whatever subject that you have a downfall in, or you think you're failing at, you want to get those people that have succeeded and now exchange ideas back and forth based on that, right?
Absolutely.
Versus just sitting there with a bunch of broke people together talking about what's what we got to do to get out of being broke, right? Mm-hmm. Or it's like me trying to sit here and say, you know what, I'm going to talk history with people that immediately after 5 words, I'm like, these fucking people don't know anything we're talking about. And they're talking some gibberish shit. And now we're just confusing. And now we're having an altercation that's not even based on facts. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm trying to tell you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So what I've learned now, honestly, is that I really don't even engage somebody if I don't feel, or I think you've said like, well, I got this background or this. Because why am I going to be arguing with somebody in technology if all they've done is played on an iPad? Mm-hmm. Right?
If that,
right?
Yeah.
And so I think we're talking about earlier about like the teaching. And I think that's one thing that I've gotten pretty good at in kind of sticking on that. What do you think about all that, Nikki?
There was a saying that they used to always say is like, people that talk about the past, there's people that talk about the news, and there's people that talk about the future. And, it really, I can sit in a room and you can really tell in someone's life just by their conversation. You're either victim mode or you're in complete control of your life. And your mindset, really, there's no in between. You can say all you want, but you can really dictate your life by your words. And so I really love that book that I was reading or listening to, because it kind of struck me, because I find myself, I don't know, I guess just trying to conversate with people you know, even though we can't relate because they're not on the level of consciousness. But I actually have learned that, you know, your words and your energy is on a tight budget. And so me eliminating a lot of that changed my life, you know. I'll have a conversation with my mom or my sister, but I hang up the phone real quick when it's something not good. It's just something I don't resonate with. However, the most impactful times in my life are having those conversations with those, you know, people that really shifted my life. Like to sit down with Jack at lunch is the best thing ever because you leave there. I mean, I always leave there thinking. He always puts me in my place in certain things, but it levels me up. It brings me a different perspective. And, you know, 10 years ago, I remember sitting, you know, at a party listening to people's conversations like, oh my gosh, it's a broken record. That girl already said that story 3 times. And it's just like, it was a reflection of their life. So words are so powerful, good or bad. Our actions are so powerful, good or bad, you know, decisions, behaviors. That's the biggest thing is it's like, we're going to walk it no matter what, but what path are you going to walk? You know, what choices are we going to make to the outcome we want? A lot of people play victim mode and then you hear what they talk about and it kind of makes sense, you know? And a lot of it has to do with like TV, you know, everybody's just so numb. Like everybody like now wants to be held their hand to be told what to do next. You know, there's no, you know, like just what you spoke about earlier. If we're sitting here and we're the pioneers, it's like we're game planning for, you know, because you're walking into the unknown. You know, there's our necessities that we have to have. But there isn't all of that socialism that we talked about in the last podcast. You know, we're not caring what we look like or what people think. And that's like the biggest thing that we have to break from is that self, you know, that illusion of what there's a saying that says, I am not what you think I am. I am not what I think I am, but I am what I think that you think I am. And then we live in a world of perception. And so it's like we want to like people to perceive us a certain way. So we kind of live towards that. If that makes sense. What do you think?
Absolutely, it does. You know, you look, you know, people say, well, oh, well, you know, things were better back then. Oh, I'm like, well, they really weren't. I would trade places with a young person anytime right now. You know, they have tons of issues that they have to deal with when it comes to, say, cyberbullying, body consciousness, and the way that they're treated. You know, so there's tons of other issues that they have to deal with that other generations never had to do with because of their access to technology. But by the same token, they have an amazing instrument at their fingertips. When I was a kid, we were poor and we had and this was in the 80s, late 80s. You know, we had a 1972 set of Britannica encyclopedias and all the best letters were missing, you know, so, but now they have everything at their fingertips. You know, and I was tutoring a girl today, you know, and she was doing an assignment on single cell organisms. Well, we could look up every single one of those and we can find those answers. So the availability of knowledge and the availability of technology is so much different from other generations. So from that perspective, you know, even going back to our topic of talking, 2 types of talk, you know, now people get to, so they can listen to this right now. And maybe they're going through some of the things that the 3 of us in all 3 different types of walks of life can give them a little bit of perspective, and they can say, give them that aha moment of, oh, you know what, here's another person that's going through this, or here's another person that I maybe aspire to, I want to try to live my life like that way, you know, from even just maybe even a Zen perspective, or, you know, being able to talk to people. You know, I think those are huge things. I mean, my father and my grandfather, they were just workers. And they, you know, not that their lives weren't good or good things didn't come out of them, but they didn't talk about their feelings, or they didn't, you know, reflect on things or be able to vent and have somebody give them constructive criticism or say, hey, I agree with you, you know. So you talk about it from a historical perspective. That's what's different about this generation is now you're reading a self-help book, and that's amazing because there's parts of it that's making you grow as a person, but prior generations didn't have those things.
You know, it's crazy. I want to read this, and this is going to be, I was going to take this later on, but I saw this meme, right? It says, too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people they don't like. Right? Think about that right there. We're talking about the talk, right?
Yeah.
So you're buying something you don't like to impress someone you really don't like. Because when you think about it, it's kind of crazy. One thing I learned that like when you start to get a little older in life, right, is you realize that the quality time you spend with the people you want, I mean, you don't have to entertain them, right? When you got entertained, we're sitting here talking. We're not here trying to sell you a dream. We're not like, oh, here's a big party, and here's this amazing alcohol. Oh, you're at the sports game and all that. And so when you start to realize, we technically, when I read that, I was like, that's freaking crazy. And I can tell you that, you know, even I, as a person, I've been guilty of a little bit of that. But the one thing I can say is I personally buy what I like, period. I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
So that ultimately I know what it means to me, right? And I think most people don't even have an identity. Because you know why? Because they spend their time with so much people just hog watching and then their minds, and they don't understand this. It's like, I think John can attest to this. And in his generation, we got that, and from mine, I don't think it was cool to be smart. It wasn't a cool thing to be in school. You were kind of academically smart. It kind of fucked with you. I used to have to hide that. But I was so athletic and had the size that kind of people didn't understand. When I was in class, they'd be like, "This holy shit, this guy just gets math so much faster or science." And in today's society, it's cool to be smart.
Yeah.
You don't have to be tough. You know, so when you look at that, imagine, I'm not saying I've done phenomenal things, but imagine what I could have done in today's generation.
Wow.
Right? With just brilliance, straight brilliance alone.
Yeah, oh no. So that you have older people that completely foster and embrace intelligence. You know, I've had, you know, about 15 years ago, I remember for a parent teacher conference, the dad come in and say, well, you know, because I'm like, well, your daughter, you know, she really has a problem with authority and she doesn't listen. And he's like, well, I'm like that too. So, oh, well, you know, and he didn't want anything better for his daughter. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think that's a tough, I think for some parents, it becomes a humbling experience for them to ever say, well, my kid's going to be 10 times smarter. And I want that to happen, you know, but you have to have that humility within yourself to say, I want that for my kids. I certainly want that for my boys, you know, so.
But you know what's crazy about that, John? You know, in your position as a teacher, you know, one of the questions I think I would have asked him, and I don't know if I could as a teacher, you tell me, I would have said, well, are you 100% happy in where you're at today? Right? Are you feel 100% fulfilled in all categories? Yeah. If the fucker would have answered yes and okay, then I'm going to talk about. But if he sat there and then didn't pause, well, that's where your daughter is heading, is exactly where you're at. Right? And I think that's so crazy. You know, we talk about when you got the wrong parents or the wrong teachers, and someone's making that comment, like, you know, I have a problem with authority. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Where are you right now in your life? Right?
How's that worked out for you?
Yeah, how's that worked out for you? Right? And this is the stuff that I always tell people. People make me fucking laugh when they use that statement. And I'm like, do you really think that I have a problem with fucking authority? But guess what? I got to answer to a lot of people. I got to answer the people that write me the POs. I got to answer if an officer pulls me over on the side of the street. I got to answer the fucking place managers. I'll give you an example, right? You know, one time I went to Gucci, and, you know, I'm a pretty high level buyer in Gucci, like top 20, I would say, in the US. And so I'm fucking known, right? And so I go in, and the lady's like, I'm like, hey, where is this guy, Danny? And he's like, oh, he's not working today, but you still got to wait in line. Holy shit. That was like, I wanted to be like, my ego wanted to be like, bitch, do you know who I am? I'm not waiting no fucking line. You know, I'm like Floyd Mayweather. But the bottom line is that's the authority. She's in charge at that moment. And whether I like it or not, depending how I decide to engage that is what the outcome is going to be. Mm-hmm. So I could go get the whole bravado, and she could be like, well, get the fuck out of my store for today. Right? And then I don't get the end result, or I can take if I can sweet sauce her better. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what the piece that no one understands. And I think that what's so sad is that we're not passing that to the generation. Yeah. If you're where you're at, want to be, and you're great, and you're giving that advice, then okay, it works for you. But we got to constantly be evolving.
Yeah.
Right? It's like me. I know immediately. I look at harmonics, and I'm like, we have a fucking tremendous deliverable. Second to nobody. I'll put us up against anybody in the country. But what are we missing? We are missing all our internal systems to work unanimously without having to touch them separate levels. So what does that mean? That means I have to have more brilliant minds running specific subsets, but would never be able to massive grow. When I mean by massive grow, I'm talking getting to $500 million. That's what I'm talking about. So you got to be able to work on those systems. So however I did things 5 years ago, 10 years ago, doesn't matter. I have to change them regardless if they've worked, or I have had to tweak them. Not a full change, but a tweak.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because if I continue to teach people to do the shit the wrong way, why bring a lot of tools to the game? And you never want to base your team off one basketball player. And that's what the Patriots do so well. It's based off the game matrix of the coach, so anybody can step in, and they're always in that conference championship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I watched by watching football. Is that ultimately it's all about building a system, not around a player. And if once you understand that, then you're going to be deadly. And that's the same thing with life, right?
Yeah.
The fundamentals, just the fundamentals of anything you do, whether it's bodybuilding or that. If you understand the fundamentals and then you go through them, you're going to see how much more you're going to achieve, right?
Absolutely. It's like navigating, we're always becoming more. So it's like really cool to hear you talk about, no matter how successful you are, you still are chiseling your foundation, your business. You're still, just becoming more, because change is the only thing that's consistent, right? So the more technology goes, you're actually going to develop more to be that way. And so like, no matter what we do across the board, is to be able to pull back in those moments of ego, right? Like he just talked about at the Gucci store, and pull back and be authentic, but navigate.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's the biggest part, is people lack the proper navigation,
Mm-hmm.
Responding off of emotion is like the biggest thing, but not afraid to develop. Like he has his idea of what he wants his business to be, and he adjusts accordingly, right? And it's so true. It's like an orchestra, I love music, and this one person's in front of all this band and all these instruments and making such beautiful music by moving them in, accordance to what they want.
Yeah.
And if we treat our life like that,
I want to
it's
show an
amazing.
example. I just sent you a picture, John. You're going to see this. I want you to put it up. And this is where we talk about fundamentals,
Okay.
right? And about sauce. And it's like when you do these things, you document them in life so that you can go back and say, holy shit, right? So let me tell you something about consistency and then understanding. We talked about, aptitude, and can we continue doing this over and over and over again, or how long we can do this, right? So once John pops this up, we're going to talk, and we're going to kind of get a laugh about this, right? So you see this picture right here, right?
Yeah.
And that's me at the age of like 26 years old. And you look at that, and that's consistent busting your ass at a different level, right? When I popped up that picture yesterday, I told myself and said, what do I have to do to get back to exactly that right there? I already know, because I was already there once. I've been there multiple times. What I'm talking about in your life, you have to be able to ask yourself, why am I not consistently there? Well, let's look at me, and we're gonna play this game, and I want you to guess, okay?
Okay.
So would you say at 25 versus now, when do you think I had more wealth? Do I have more wealth now or 25?
Now.
Yeah.
Time and wisdom, I think, are things that,
So let me do another game with you guys. Do you guys think I generate more wealth now or when I was 29?
No.
Just guess.
No.
I guess now, but I know that because you worked for like a bigger firm or whatever, that you probably maybe generated money for them and you made other people rich. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, but I was saying individual just for me.
Oh,
At the end result, what would you guys say?
I'd say no.
no, I guess.
29.
Oh, really?
And it's not because of the thing, it's because of the environment and the times. It's
Okay.
economy, right? So there has to be a huge economy. And I tell people this, I have to work twice as hard to do small things in order to equal up to big things. And so what I'm saying is, do I generate that? No, I'm probably about, literally, if I want to be honest with myself, I'm probably at 1/3 of the wealth generation that I did for a 5-year run. That's all because of economy. But with the other assets and the stuff that I've done, yes, I'm generating more now.
Yeah.
But not technically in that one stream. But what I was trying to show you about the arm is what's the reason that my arm's not the same size there as it is right now?
The amount of time you're putting into it.
The amount of time I'm putting in what I'm doing this. So what I'm saying is that this is what we're talking about, consistency. But there should be no excuse.
Yeah.
I actually should be that size or maybe bigger, which is going to be massive, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a give. And that's where we talk about that balance. But the thing is this, I can't make the excuse because I'm screwing around. So instead of the times visiting my buddies or talking on the phone or looking on social media, I should have been pumping in the gym. So it wasn't really cutting out work time. It's cutting out bullshit time.
I like that.
But do you see how I can look right at myself and say, no, it's not because you're putting more work and you're generating wealth. It's because of bullshit time.
Yep. Your point of attention.
Your point of attention. And that's what I'm talking about. And it's hard because you can develop bad habits over 10 years, which is me right now. And I'm in pretty phenomenal shape, right? People will be like, what are you talking about? But that's not for me. I want to be exceptional. 3%, right?
Yeah.
I'm in the 1% tax bracket, but I want to be in the 3% physical bracket. You see what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah.
Same thing with my mental, same thing with my spiritual. So what I realize is that you have to find the time to put into those and understand what it takes. What only takes an hour and 15 minutes a day of hardcore, intense weight training and dieting. What I mean by diet, not dieting is the worst word I could hear, is putting in the proper level of nutrition that you need for what you're trying to achieve, which could be more, which could be less, depending where it's at. And you add that's another 45 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's no freaking excuse. But what we're doing is we're screwing off.
Yeah.
Because we get tired. Our mind says, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to watch fucking SpongeBob. No. This is the kind of things that I'm saying that if you start to develop these habits and you create them early, you're never working backwards. Like me personally today, I'm not going to work backwards in the wealth department.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've worked hard to stack away. Can I make some stupid ass decisions to get me there? Absolutely. We're 2 or 3 bad decisions from going to shit, holy crap. But I'm not going to make that decision. So I'm starting to believe is like with the talk, it's better to be around people that are going to influence you in a positive way than in a negative way. Think about this in the podcast here, right? We don't got Winston in today. So what does he bring into the table? So one of the things that's cool about him is because when me and him are sitting across each other and we're screwing around, and we've talked about this, we actually don't see an age difference, which is weird between us. Even, you know what I'm trying to say? Because that gumption and that power. But when we're in there, no one can push me as hard as he can in the weight room, unless I'm with them big bodybuilder guys, right?
Yeah.
So think about that. So why would I be going to the weight room or anybody else instead of going with him? When now with the knowledge that I have, I can take him to greater heights than he can on his own because I know the knowledge. So I'm helping him and he's helping me because it's giving me something to look forward to because I feel like I'm doing something good, but in turn, I'm doing myself something great. You see what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, that whole talking within a group. John, I'm sitting with John. I'm like, I really like John. I'm saying, okay, fuck. If I'm going to take someone lunch, I'll say, John, what are you doing? I want to buy you lunch because I want to sit with him. And I don't want to talk nonsense. I want to talk history, right? Yeah. And he might be like, I like it or I don't. Obviously, that's his passion. He loves it. So it's going to be continually bettering my mind. So if I have 5 lunches with John over the course of a month, how closer am I going to be to my goal instead of talking about it? But what am I going to do? I'm going to come with a freaking badass timeline or all the information that I need. Say, hey, I want you to glimpse at this. Tell me if I'm off or am I screwed up? That's what we don't do. We don't want to put the time in for ourselves. You know what we want? If I came in and said, John, I want to take you to lunch. Can you plot up these things for me? He'd be say, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm busy. Like Google or you know what I'm trying to say? And this is what I find with people, why you have to be with the same like minds and speaking, because then you're going to get all pissed off. Like I've been in meetings before where everyone's like, you're all high end. And I am because you know why? Because I'm like, you guys should know this. but it's not my team's fault. It's my fault because I actually didn't document it so that everybody could understand. They say when you're the greatest teacher in the world, you know you become the greatest teacher when everybody understands what you're doing. Like your grandma can understand immediately what's going on. If your grandma doesn't know what's going on, then you're a bad teacher, right?
Mhm.
Because unless that student's not putting any work whatsoever into it, then you can pull back and say, dude, I tried everything but the kitchen sink on this. So does that kind of take you where I'm going
Yeah.
when we talk about?
Absolutely. There was something that I wrote down that kind of went with this. It's called "Show Up to Develop Your Potential." You know, we'll just take me for instance because I only like to talk from experience. But you know, the guitar. I had a natural talent, but I showed up and I put in the time, which made me the guitar player I am today. Right. And it's like a lot of us never show up to our own stuff. Like we're so quick to root someone else on before we push ourselves to our next greatness, you know? And I don't know if that stems from maybe like ego or, you know, self doubt. Goes back all to the self talk, you know, but we're so quick to, some people are so quick to not show up for their own potential, you know? And I think that's like a big thing. And where your mind goes, the tension flows is the biggest thing. It's like, what are we focusing on? What is it that we're focusing when a situation happens? Are you looking at problems? Or are you looking at solutions, right? And it's just like, even when we have these conversations, it's like, what's our point of perception of it? You know, because I'll listen to people and I love to hear people's stuff when it's good knowledge and stuff that's something I'm not aware of. But I like to take it with a grain of salt and then research it and do it myself, because if we're so quick just to believe everything we're told or we heard, you know, what does that really say? We're just easily manipulated, you know? And so like, to me, I feel like my point of attention, I'm very more like, I put my energy and my time on a budget. I've been really monitoring my time. Like, what does my day look like? And I started eliminating stuff. I even looked at like my apps, like how long am I on this site, or how long am I doing this if it's not marketing? And there's a lot of wasted time in the day, you know, whether it's for a business or personal growth. And I'm just being very more keen on how I budget my time. And I'm sure you wake up and you have your own time budget that you have. And
I'm very conscious of my time, Nikki. I think the one thing that people get freaked out with me is like when I get to work, I'm not really a small talker. And one thing people realize about me, like when I'm in the grind, I am not really there to like have a long conversation. I think I've told you guys this. I'm actually more introverted than I am extroverted, even though it looks like it. But when I'm like in my zone, I just want to get shit done. There's never like I'm there to hoorah rah. And this is why I think I've become so successful even when I work for people, is I'm very mission oriented, just bottom line mission oriented. And so when I get to work, I have my task list that I ran from the night before, or if I ran it really early in the morning and say, I got to get A, B, and C done. And I evaluate them based on, in business, I got to collect. Number one, your most important is collecting. The second most important is quoting. It's either quote or die, right?
yeah,
So if you're not getting quotes out and you're not collecting, you're going to fail. The third thing is about refining what you currently have internally. What processes, how am I going to make myself better? How am I going to make the company better? And that goes down from sweeping or whatever you got to do, some very small things, the parking lot, you know, the Great Wall of China that built. And so you're constantly doing better. And so I think what people don't focus on is focusing and saying, if on my daily routine, this routine brings me X negative, I'm depressed after doing this, then cut that out. You know, you said a question and said, you know, most people don't succeed because is it egos or this? And I tend to believe it can be ego, because ego wants to build you bigger than what you are, or I can do this, or come out with a pride. Is I really believe it's just a sense of internal laziness. Like the clock's just not fired up. So it's just that you got to like really self-talk yourself and say, we got to get this shit started. That's why most people, you know, when I listen to them, there's very few people like Carson that, you know, he knew me, like, I don't like school. I'm not good at school. I remember when he was taking his test and I was like, okay, I can see where this guy struggles, but he has that gumption. And once he understands it, he can do this. I don't like to use the word smart. It's a different learning style. But when you have a good learning style and you can go through it and you're like, oh, I can't get through this or like that, you're like, no, you're a fuck up, because you should be able to get to college like that. no matter what it is. But what it is because they really don't have the work ethic. I remember I took on 21 credit hours one time. People thought I was nuts. And I kicked ass.
Yeah.
And I was working. But people were out there whining. But my whole thing was, I remember sitting with the advisor, and he said, the people I've seen that take 21 credit hours here succeed because if you take these ones here, when you get to calculus and you get to physics 2, you can just focus on those 2 classes, and then you're not focused on these, but get this done. And so I learned the strategy. And I was like, oh, shit, that makes sense. You're not going to take 21 credit hours of the full-blown engineering courses. You ain't going to make it. But you know what I'm trying to say? And I look at Cameron, the guy that I'm mentoring now, and he's almost done, and he's in there in computer engineering, and he's pretty much just attacked everything from summer classes to just his daily routine, but it's all structure. And it's funny because his dad was telling me something yesterday. And he says, when Cameron was a baby, we were all Gardunias, and his grandma and his aunt wanted to pick him up. And he said, no. And the moment you think, well, that must be harsh. And he's like, no. Because if he starts to think that the moment he fusses a little bit and you pick him up, then he's going to make a connection. And he's like, no, he has to sit between us. Now, if you want to take him for a walk and you walk around the parking lot and come around and come back and then bring him back, you're welcome to do that. But nobody wants to do that. And so he says, and he laughed and he smiled at me. He says, why do you think he's where he's at? I showed him structure and I was like, holy shit, this man has figured it out.
Yeah.
And you know, William, you know, he's rigid as a son of a bitch, but it's just like, wow. You know, I tell people, you guys are the American population or the Albuquerque population should be striving to be a William, not a me. I'm an anomaly. You know, can I say you can get where I'm at? Maybe, but it's going to be a fucking long stretch. A William is a testament of like hard work. You do A, B, and C. He turned 60 years old and he's killing it. He's in, you know, going where he wants. He's got a new Corvette. He's got 3 Corvettes. And it's just a phenomenal when I'm looking. He's like, yeah, and I made these moves and I sold this house and I'm here in this house in a gorgeous place. And I'm thinking, I told him, I said, you're an inspiration to me. I mean, it just makes me feel like, wow, you weren't trying to take the shortcut. You weren't, you know, dreaming about this. He's the one that his famous line is, one time someone tells him, says, William, do you want a Lambo? And he says, I only dream about what I can afford. Never heard that. And I was taken back and I was like, wow. And he was so convicted about it. He didn't feel bad. He's like, I dream about what can I afford. And he's doing damn well. You know, we know he's doing well. But those are the things I think that we get lost. But when you surround yourself with that kind of talk, in my mind, I go, okay, structure. My other friend, Mo, structured as a son of a bitch. It was so crazy because we did this numerology test. And it says, like, even as friends, me and him are the most compatible. And we always tease and said, man, if we'd have been roommates, it would have been freaking crazy. We'd have the cleanest house in the world, right? Everything would have been so structured. You'd have been like, holy shit, right?
Yeah.
Down to the footstep, right? The carpet would have evened out exactly. But that's what I'm talking about. So if I surround myself with a bunch of sloppy people, well, they're going to start to make me think I'm fucking nuts. And then might have to say, well, maybe that's not right. No. I want to hang with people that are better at me in certain things, or where I want to get to something that I'm not there about. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a person that grew up with the structure and it was kind of embedded from a kid, right? And I'm pretty sure, you know, 80% of the people that you spoke about had that structure from a young age, whether it came from a teacher or parent or not. I don't know. That's why I said 80%. But from a person like me that, you know, didn't come from any type of stuff, do you think the best way for me to develop those skills is on who I hang out with and what I conversate and what I feed my mind and my lifestyle I choose? Because I feel like that's always been my worst
absolutely
unknown territory, is that structure, because I wasn't given that. I mean, I was goal driven. I was structured in a sense, but I feel like now that I'm running my businesses, like those are elements that I'm noticing I'm lacking, is like that self-discipline of structure, you know, like where do I adapt that?
Well, I think, Nikki, what you're saying is this, look, I think the stuff that you achieve is it's all fun and games when you're playing in the playground.
Right.
And you win a couple points and you feel good about yourself in the monkey bars. Then you get to organized sports and you're playing in the elementary game and you're in the B squad or there's the A squad. And then you start going to high school and you're like, oh, I think this is a game. Then you get to D1. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is now you're in business and you're in D1 because you're going to try to go to the NBA, so to say. but you still can make some money, right? And I think what I want to tell you is this: out of the 3 people I told you, the only one that was born with the structure was me.
Wow.
1/3. Mo grew up in the trailer park, Boys and Girls Club. It must have been something ingrained. He's like, I don't want this. And John might know more than I do because you know him at that level. And he was like, I'm not going to do this. So I'm going to just do A, B, and C. And he talks about when he was a dental hygienist and like he said, even then they were like paycheck to paycheck. And I'm like, how the fuck are you paycheck when you're making $30 an hour? But he didn't come from that structure. But somewhere along the line, he was like, I don't like where I see here in these results. So I got to make some changes. But guess what? He was around a bunch of dentists, a bunch of successful dudes. So these guys would be coming in their Vipers, right? And to go get their teeth cleaned. What are you guys doing? And I can't tell exactly what these guys would say, but it's pretty lewd. And he's like, fuck, I got to be on that guy's level. Yeah. So absolutely, right? Because if you hang a bunch of random people who are kind of screwing around, they're going to be like, Nikki, great job. You're killing it, man. Love what you're doing and all that. And I'm going to be like, Nikki, did you fucking collect the invoice or are we just creative?
Yeah.
You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you look at, and it's like, I'll give you an example. I look at the video just, you chopped up for us. Fucking going amazing for the podcast. What have you done? You're the first person that said, send me this stuff. And you did it versus the people that we come here and says, I want to be part of this. I'm going to bring lights. I want to do this and all that. And it's all talk.
Yeah.
But what you learn where I'm at in my life, it's all about action.
Yep.
Your words don't mean shit to me. And I think that's what I think you're gonna learn now is in business, is learn to qualify your customer. Yeah. Learn to qualify who you're around. Because at the end of the day, if they're not making you better, or they want to sit down and talk about bullshit because they don't got a budget, well, that's a waste of your time.
Yeah. And
so when you give them the rate, like that's why I say just be very transparent. Everybody wants to be my friend. Everyone thinks, oh shit, it's gonna be lights, glimmer, this, that, the other. But I'm a pretty tough guy to get along with in the sense that I expect a lot, right? Like you go with me in my car or any of my vehicles, don't be fucking dropping shit. Keep your feet on the mat. Don't put your shit on my dash. You see what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah.
Because I'm not easygoing in that area. When it comes to my stuff, I'm not easygoing. And I think that if you understand that, you're good. But if I was with a hippie mentality and they're like, well, what's the big fucking deal? I drop coke all over your seat. Well, to them, they don't give a shit because they're in a fucking Subaru that's got more stains than fuck. But you know what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what that whole thing is tell me who, I think I'm going to chop this shit up. You guys probably got it better than me, but it says the lowest person out of the 5 people you're hanging out with is who you're going to become. Yep. Or your potential becoming, right?
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, absolutely. If you want to get better, you got to start hanging with people that can move the needle. And it might not even be 5 because I've never found 5. It's always been 1 or 2. You get those 1 or 2, then you're going to get better.
Absolutely. I don't remember who it was, but it was someone I met in my time, and they said something. I could tell your financial situation by how you keep your wallet. And today I found some old journals and stuff. I was looking for a design that I did, and I read that because I jot stuff down all the time, and it reminded me of you, is because like a lot of people don't take care of what they already have. Like working with you, like I see how pristine you keep your tools your office, everything's always pristine and clean. But even at the end of the day, when you're done working, you take that extra time to like appreciate your stuff and to take care of that. And when I think about when that lady told me, what did my wallet look like? I had like $100 bills crunched up, hidden in a sleeve, $20 here. All my money was unorganized. And since that day that lady told me, I always tried to clean up my wallet, keep everything nice. And, 'cause she was like, that's what you're telling the universe, that you don't really appreciate what you have.
Look, what's so funny?
What?
You see that?
Yeah.
I got to show you guys my wallet. Look. Look at that. That thing is pristine. Look.
That is pristine.
You see that? Everything is, I can tell you exactly where everything's at one time. And that's 100%. I think if you have a cluttered wallet or a cluttered mind or a cluttered room or any of that stuff, I got to read something. You guys ever heard of numerology?
Yes.
And so one of our good friends, Rachel, she did this thing. And when you're reading it, it's like spot on about my personality. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit, this is pretty intense, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that ultimately, you have to know who you are, and you have to be around people that are going to help you grow for who you are. And that's the soil. Your people around you is the soil. So if you're like naturally a neat freak and all that, but you're around a bunch of slobs, they could be your family. Do not adapt to their style. You make them change. And I love my little dad. He's one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life, but he's sloppy. And this last, I don't know when you guys remember when I was going up north all the time, I knocked all his sheds down. Took the skid steer, knocked shit. There was beehives. There's all kinds of crap. We loaded his tools correctly, and we got all this room. And now we have a bigger parking lot. And what I realize is that he doesn't understand. He comes from a time where you save everything, and I'm like, that's just clutter.
Yeah.
That's just junk. But what I've been able to do is say, Dad, this is better for all of us. This is better for you. So we got to get this done. And I think that's what I'm talking about. So you don't ever subdue yourself because of people's feelings or who they are. Just get your shit done. As long as you know that it's bringing positive, that's how you measure it. Is it bringing positive in my life?
What was that saying? There's a book called The 5 Stratoscopic Laws for Success. And the first law is give more in value than you take in payment. And it kind of makes you think of like a local burrito shop or where we're at, the grill. Every time I've come here, I've been treated amazingly. The food's always consistent. And no matter what the prices was, it was the experience that always brings me back. They could be super pricey or super cheap. It doesn't really matter. They're giving me more in value than they're taking in payment, and that's one of the laws that always stuck with me when that book was given to me. And it's true. Who are you impacting? Like what are you doing and who is it impacting? And I love that, to be able to measure in that, because I feel like sometimes we measure in the wrong metrics in a sense, like socialism. Like, who cares how many likes you got? Like, what are you actually doing? What's the impact? Look at what you do, even just in the network. Like, I know for a fact, working in the field that I have, if it wasn't for a company like you, I wouldn't be able to do what I did on the level I done because of people like you that developed it. And so it's kind of funny how everything, people grab like this microphone, they don't think anything. And I know how much work it goes into every like detail, radius, the cone, the coil that they're using to wrap this stuff. Like, there's so much stuff, but we're so quick just to grab the mic when we don't think about that. But there's so much like underlining fundamental stuff that we forget to have like gratitude for and see at a level of that. I mean, and in all aspects, I mean, it's such a beautiful thing. I really like that, to measure in impact. That's heavy. I actually have a quote that I wrote down just because it reminded me of you. And I knew you're going to have something with it. I already know you. It says, winners win and losers lose. Winners stay consistent. And I feel like that's the biggest thing, because I know that you haven't had moments where, I don't want to say fail, but you've had moments of like a speed bump of some sort, but you never stop moving. Most people treat it like a brick wall, and they're just like stunned, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened to me. And then you just all of a sudden, people 10 years later, my whole life was great until 10 years ago, and so said no,